Today I want to share 10 things you can declutter today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. And part of this video isn't just to literally tell you to declutter these things, but to give you ideas of how you can be thinking, what are the types of things around my house that I kind of forget I have, or that I don't really need, and that if I got rid of might make my life better. So this is also just to kind of get you thinking in this way, also get me thinking in this way, because I want to get back into decluttering, but hopefully it'll be helpful for all of us. First, go and declutter those old condiments in your refrigerator that you're kind of too grossed out to use. Sometimes I'll keep condiments in there just because on principle I think I might need them, but then when it actually comes to using them, I'm kind of like, how long has that been in there? There isn't much left and it just looks a little funky. So I think it's helpful to go through your refrigerator with a more critical eye to really determine what would I be excited to eat in my refrigerator and what is that thing that I'm just keeping out of some kind of obligation because I feel like I should use it all. That's even a general concept you can apply to decluttering in general. I think there will be a fair number of those in this video. But just this idea that sometimes we keep things out of obligation, out of some kind of penance for not doing something or not using something in the past, but really it's just creating more misery for ourselves. Second, declutter those tiny grooming tools that either don't work or are just too old. For example, old nail clippers that are super dull, or the tweezers that just breaks the thing that you're trying to tweeze. I feel like there are certain tweezers in my household where it's like if you use it, it only breaks the item and it doesn't actually get it out, but somehow I end up keeping them. Again, have that critical eye for what of your little tools do you actually use and what actually works for you. Sometimes we forget to declutter the little things, but sometimes those little things are the things that add up and make your home chaotic. And you gotta start somewhere. If you feel overwhelmed by decluttering, start small. The third one might be a little bit more obvious, but is an easy way to get started, and that's to declutter things in your pantry that are super expired. Just go through your food and see what is just not okay to eat at this point. For the sake of food waste, I think sometimes certain items can be used, potentially even a little past their expiration date. Use your judgment for those super expired foods. It's just time to let them go. And that's an easy task to get into the mode of decluttering. It's very obvious. If this food is not safe to eat, I can declutter it. And once you declutter that extra food, you'll notice what a huge benefit decluttering is, how much more you enjoy reaching into your little pantry or shelf, and you'll want to keep decluttering. Fourth, declutter the clothes that haven't been through the laundry in months. I think sometimes we can't tell what we use or what we don't use, but sometimes if you can think through what are the items that go through the laundry all the time that I'm always seeing when I'm doing laundry versus what has just been sitting in my closet untouched, that can give you one metric as to what would be good to eliminate. If it's just been sitting in your closet or your dresser for months on end and you haven't touched it, it's time to let it go. Even if there are sentimental reasons you're keeping it, or even if you're hoping to have a situation to use it one day, if you haven't touched it in months, it's time to let it go. This fifth one I love, and it's similar to the last one, but it is a distinct group of clothing, and that is the clothing that stays at the bottom of the laundry hamper. It's those excess pieces that when you're doing laundry, you're like, I can wait to do that laundry until later because you kind of don't like the pieces. Maybe they're mismatched socks, or they're difficult to do in the laundry, or maybe they need to be dry cleaned, but you just leave them in the laundry hamper. That extra little layer of stuff at the bottom of your hamper is usually comprised of the things that you just don't need and that you could easily eliminate. The next one is to declutter clothing you've meant to have altered but haven't dealt with. What I sometimes do is I set a deadline of 1 month. I'll even put the reminder in my phone. But if you set a deadline for yourself and there's an item that you've meant to have altered but you still haven't altered it, that's probably a sign it's just not going to happen. And that is the time to donate it or to let it go. A seventh one is gear from an old hobby that you've neglected or abandoned. For example, you might have a bunch of craft supplies that you've always meant to create some kind of art project with, but those belongings haven't been touched in years. Today's the day. Go out and get rid of it. I think sometimes we keep these belongings because they remind us of a past. Maybe they remind us of something we used to enjoy doing, or maybe a dream we had of something we would do in the future but never really got around to. But I think sometimes when we hold on to these vestiges of the past, we're not leaning into our own futures. We're holding on to a past that isn't really helping us. Just because you used to value something or enjoy something doesn't mean that you haven't changed. And I think sometimes decluttering these things allow us to embrace our current selves and lean into the future. The act of eliminating those physical things can help you psychologically move on to the next segment of your life, which can be super empowering. I think an example for me is when I switched careers from psychology to being a podcast producer and also doing YouTube. I had a lot of old books and notes and things, and I kept them around because I was still afraid, maybe I'll want to go back to psychology. Is it irresponsible to let go of these things? And there were boxes and boxes of this stuff. And eventually I just realized, you know what? I feel like these items are just screaming at me. Why did you spend so much of your life pursuing this if you're not doing it as a career now? And it just weighed me down. So eventually what I did is I decluttered a huge percentage of it. I do still have a few things that I think are interesting or are somehow important to me, but probably like 90% or probably even more than that of the stuff that I had for my past career in psychology has now been eliminated. And I feel like it's allowed me to own who I am now. I'm not a psychologist now. I now work in this new creative field, and it helps me feel confident and emboldened to pursue that life. And if I ever actually decided to go back to psychology, I could figure it out. Another thing to declutter today is old dog food or treats. These things sometimes we keep around too long and they actually go rancid and are bad for our pets. So, whatever pet it is, check how long you've had that food and whether it needs to go. I think this is easily forgotten. Ninth, you should declutter those old home decor trinkets that you have not used in a long time. Specifically because, at least in my experience, once I take a home decor trinket and I put it away in storage, it will never have a rebirth. It will never come back into the main area, or if it does, it'll only come back out of obligation, like, oh, I bought this a while back, so I feel like I should use it. But usually for those little trinkets that sit on the shelves or are on display, if they go away into storage, they're never going to see the light of day again. And I'm just keeping them out of guilt for having purchased them. But the thing is that if we don't declutter them, then we also don't learn our lesson. So often I'd keep those trinkets just to keep lying to myself that I was going to use them again, to make myself feel better about the bad decisions I made in the past. But by actually facing the reality, hey, I bought this, I used it for a little while, but it hasn't really panned out in the long run, I can actually accept, hey, I made this mistake and I don't want to make this exact same mistake in the future. So look through your trinkets, let them go. A 10th one is that box or bag of stuff you meant to bring to Goodwill. So often we do the declutter, but then we forget to follow through with eliminating it. The next time you're going to be going out and about, just stop by Goodwill or your donation center and let go of that item. This is your reminder to do that. So this was kind of a short and simple one, but I hope that talking through these different ideas just got your wheels turning, making you think about what in my home could I declutter that I sometimes forget about. I also just want to mention I very recently came out with my birth story video, which was very personal, and I talked a lot about my experience, and I just want to say thank you to all the comments. So many of you reached out and shared your own stories or what you struggled with, or sent really kind words of encouragement and congratulations. And I gotta say, I'm so touched and grateful for all of those. We're so excited to have this new baby girl, and we're just really glad that she's here and that we get to spend time with her. But just in case I just can't get to a lot of those comments, I just wanted to say here formally, thank you. I'll also link that video below if you're curious. And I also want to add, if any of you are new here, welcome. I'm Aylin, and I make videos on simple living, minimalism, and building an empowering mindset. I have a huge backlog of videos, a lot of bingeable content, so if you want to follow along, please hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you want to support the channel, like this video. That is an awesome way to help support me and the channel. Anyway, thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!